Namaste, welcome everybody. This is a short evening yin practice designed to help you slip off gently into bed and a very restful sleep. So the first pose we're going to come into is saddle pose. You're going to need a block and maybe a brick. You might want to have a hand towel to wedge into the back of the knees. And you can also practice this pose completely prop free. The way I like to come into it is to have the big toes together to sit onto the heels, but then to take the knees fairly wide apart and then move the bolster so that it's right back into the lower back here. And as I begin to lean back, I'll lift my hips slightly and point the tailbone between the knees and then gently lower myself down. Now notice that my knees are going to lift a little bit off the floor to begin with, and that's okay. I'm then going to find a block, or you could put a really nice comfy cushion here, for instance. You don't have to have a brick. Maybe an eye pillow across the eyes for the evening, so that you begin to shut out the maybe external distractions and allow your eyes, your senses begin to become more quiet and more rested. Now this is a super pose to practice at the end of the day because it allows us to stretch out the front of the hips and the quadriceps. And these structures, they get pretty short during the day, especially if we've had a day where we've been sitting for a long amount of time. Now if you come into this pose and it's a little bit tight in the lower back, there's some discomfort there, then my suggestion is that you prop your bolster up a little bit higher, maybe to a 45-degree angle, and you allow yourself to rest down over it slightly with it not being so close to the ground. Okay, and then as with all yin, we find our still place and we resolve to spend some time here. Now, how much time you choose to practice is entirely up to you. This is just a guideline, but as this is a very short practice, and also this first pose can be quite intense, then my suggestion is to maybe spend 3 to 5 minutes here. And you can be your own best judge. If you are unable to practice saddle pose, then the alternative perhaps is to come into a sphinx or maybe a seal pose instead. Now whilst you're here, for the next few minutes, concentrate on allowing the back of your body to rest into the supports beneath it. Feel your shoulders wrapping around the support of the bolster. And feel the bolster supporting the curve in the low back. As your breath begins to settle and slow, can you use the sound of your breath to cool and to calm the mind? Okay, so well done everybody. When you're ready to come out of this pose, you could either slip your feet, your knees out from underneath you, or you could gently use your hands to prop yourself up. Remember to bring your chin to your chest as you lift yourself back up to a kneeling position. And it's also quite nice to stretch the legs out afterwards and give the knees a little bit of a rub, especially if you found that a little bit challenging for the front of the legs. Okay, so our next pose is going to be twisting tiger. And again, you could use your block, but I'm going to pop mine out of the way. But if you wanted to prop up your bolster with it so it's a little bit higher, then please do. You're then going to sit with your knees bent and the bolster just nestled into the side of the hip. We're going to take a twist here. So this is going to be really nice for the spine, but it's also going to be superb for the hips. To come into the pose, have hands either side of your bolster. Gently, as you breathe in, feel yourself lifting up slightly. Engage your pelvic floor a little bit. Keep the pelvic floor engaged, lower abdomen slightly in. And as you exhale, slowly revolve your way around and down so that you can perhaps turn your head in the opposite direction to the knees. If that's not possible for you, have your head facing the same way as the knees to begin with, and then you can eventually, maybe after a minute or so of being here, is to lift up and to find a sort of deeper version of the pose and turn your head in the opposite direction. And then when we get here, we find a position that's comfortable and manageable for the time. We resolve to be still. We let the eyes close. The body to feel supported by the bolster, just like it did in the previous pose. And I want you to breathe deeply right down the length of your spine so that you're filling up the lumbar region and the back of the hips with your breath. I'm going to be here for about 3 minutes in total on each side. Okay, so as we prepare ourselves to come up and to come out, what I'd suggest is that you turn your head back in the direction of your knees, and then use your hands to gently lift yourself up as you peel yourself off of your bolster and come upright. Okay, well done. Sweep your legs over to the other side and we'll come straight into the same pose with the rotation in the other direction. So when you're ready, nestling the bolster into the side of the hip, breathing in and lifting through the pelvic floor and lower abdomen, keeping that lift as you breathe out and gently spiraling your way down and along your bolster. Remember, it might feel quite intense to begin with. You're looking for mild to moderate sensation. You should be able to breathe. And there shouldn't be any discomfort anywhere. No sense of pins and needles, sharp shooting pains. And this goes for all of the yin poses. So use your breath to allow your body to find a comfortable release. And even if after a minute or so it still feels so intense that you're unable to be here with ease, then back out a bit, change it. It's perfectly fine to go at entirely your own pace. Again, 3 minutes here to be still, to be with your breath. To begin to calm the fluctuations of the mind. And the last couple of breaths. And then again, same as the previous side. Return your head to face in the same direction as your knees. And then use your hands to support you as you peel yourself away from the bolster. Come up to sit. And it might just be that you'd like to sit for a few moments, maybe with the feet in a Baddha Konasana shape, as you allow your spine to fall back into its central position. Okay. And then when you're ready, we'll come into our final position. And we're going to come into a forward fold. And the reason for that is because it allows for a sense of quietness, and that's where we want to be at the end of the day. We want to be taking away stimulation from outside external influences and start to retreat more inwardly where it's calm and peaceful. And we create that calm and that peacefulness in these practices by giving ourselves permission to spend time in them. Now notice that I've taken my block and I'm sitting on it. You could obviously sit on cushions or more blocks if you need more height. And it might be that you then use your bolster as a little bit of something to support you. And sometimes it could be quite nice to give the bolster a little bit of a hug and maybe to rest your chin or even your forehead on the bolster. And that might be enough. If you've got more opportunity to go a little bit deeper, then maybe the bolster rests across the top of the thighs and you allow yourself to be draped over the top of it. Remember, in Yin, we're not necessarily looking for the deepest expression of stretch. But as long as we have the sensation, here we're looking to create length down the back of the legs, but we're also looking to round the back structures of the spine. So another option could be to put the bolster along the legs out in front of you, or even just have nothing at all and let your body fold forwards. I quite like in the evening, however, to rest the head onto something. So wherever you get to, and you could even use a block here instead of your bolster, but it's sometimes quite nice to have something to rest the head onto. All right, so have a little bit of a play. Feel free to make a shape that feels appropriate for you. And if you're finding this is too strong a stretch, or you're thinking, I don't want to do this, then a great substitute is child's pose. Okay. And then breathe again. And for this pose, I would suggest again maybe 3 to 5 minutes. You can be here for as long or as little as you like. Do you concentrate on allowing the shoulders to relax? And any discomfort that you may be feeling in your knees or backs of the legs, you could support this by bending the knees, even sliding a blanket or something underneath the back of the knee joints. We're going to stay here for a few more breaths. Before you think about moving, simply notice how your body has responded to this particular shape and how perhaps it has accepted the shape and softened into it. Okay. Then waiting for an inhalation, maybe using your hands as little support as you lift up, and slowly return yourself to an upright position. And it might be quite nice to lean back into the hands momentarily to lift the chest and bring the shoulder blades towards one another behind you. Okay. And then from here, if you are taking yourself off to bed, then by all means, enjoy. Or you could come to lay down in a brief Shavasana. And this is where I'll say goodbye, and I wish you a very pleasant night's sleep. Namaste.